Hope everybody's doing well. I wasn't sure if I was going to do a video on this or not, but I thought I'd go ahead and do one, just maybe to point out a few things if you're building a Johnny 5. So I have completely torn out all the Cradle based electronics in Johnny for one main reason, and that was to upgrade this 3D printed plate that I had electronics attached to. So this is the previous one, and I'll put up on the screen what it looked like before. But essentially, the way it was on there, I had these servo controllers upright on here. I had the fuse block here, and I had the screw terminals, one here and one here. And this was like the first time I've ever actually designed anything in CAD and printed it. So there was a lot of mistakes made. One, it wasn't wide enough for as wide as I could. I can make it, as you can see, wider. The other is I printed this in PLA, and when I went to drill it, it just pretty much gave way. So I kind of knew that, but it was working for what I needed it for at the time. And then also, the problem with this is up on the front, these screws that are here, I purposely made these longer so I could actually have this mounted. But the problem is inside here, where it comes up to the front, it was hitting this, and you can see it's all broken and everything. So completely redesigned that and made some changes. And this is what basically it's turned out to be. It's actually turned out really nice. So this is a PETG. So that ends up being a lot stronger for one. And then the other thing I did is I noticed when this was actually on here, this gap wasn't big enough and this gap wasn't big enough. So I've made this wider to clear that, and then I didn't put any holes here, but I went ahead and extended these out for the center. So I just mounted here, and then underneath I put these pads, so it just rests on that, as opposed to needing to screw any additional holes. It just, you can see here, it just sits down on there. So and having these 4 other mount positions is plenty. The other thing I learned was when you're working in here, it was very hard to get to these potentiometers. And so I wanted to, and it was very hard to get to these screw terminals because I had them sitting upright so close together, you almost couldn't get a screwdriver in to turn these. So I decided, well, I got plenty of room here now. So I just laid them flat. And what I did is you got these screws here, which are these, I'm assuming probably a metric is what these were. And these are basically pressing down the circuit board onto the transistors that are underneath. But it's got 4 other mount screws. So they're serving a purpose, but they're now serving 2 purposes. Because what I did was I came in and I went ahead and retapped these to 440. And I put a longer screw in, which took it all the way down and mounts it to the bottom of this. So it's using a 1 1/8, I think, 440 screw. And so these are on here really nice now. And then of course I moved the labels so I can see where those are at. So that actually turns out really, really good. And allows, once it's back in there, to get access to this a lot easier. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I was thinking about this, and before I had this fuse block on here, and it works okay. Power comes in, goes right to that, and then up to here. But in reality, I want to be able to get to this in case it pops. And once the top's on this, it's going to take a lot of work to get down to this. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to actually mount this out here on this block. This actually is a much better placement. For one, there's a little bit of a shorter run between this power fuse and the switch. So I mean, essentially the wire, before the wire was going around this way and then going on down to that power block, whereas now I just took the opposite side and went to right here. And then it's got this little wire, which is way shorter now, going right to this power disruptor relay. And then the other side will come around and go to the power relay. And then this side of it goes to the main power coming in. So that's on this connector here. So the main power will come to this monitoring block, and then out of that, and it'll come up here. So I mean, in the end, it's probably not shorter overall, but it's so much cleaner the way this is. And I have direct access to this fuse now by just taking off this panel, as opposed to before where I would have to take off probably 20, 30 screws just to get to the fuse. So now we got the whole assembly back in here, as you can see. Very nice and clean. And I did add an enhancement while having this apart. I added another relay in here. And the reason for that is because when I was having a conversation with Ryan Howard on his unit, he had mentioned that he had put a disablement for the tracks. So when he's in public events and he's not moving Johnny around, then there won't accidentally be some sort of runaway situation. So I took a note off of that, and I decided to do the same thing. The way I did mine is basically you have the main power here, and then this is controls the main power relay. So that then enables the unit, but it does not, but at this point the tracks are not enabled. And so you can see down in here, if I turn the light off, got a red light on this relay, but that relay's dark. And then so I have my track button here, enable that. Now my track relay is enabled. So I have a way of basically bypassing the tracks, but leaving the rest of Johnny active. Back over here, I now have all this connected up. So I've got my external fuse here now, and I've got my lines that come out to that. So that's going to be perfect now. In the event that that fuse pops, I can actually get to it very easily, as opposed to taking the top off. And this is Brucey. Hello, Brucey. You gonna say hi? Say hi. Hi to the viewers. Okay, bye, Brucey. As far as underneath goes, this is pretty much what we're left with. Much cleaner arrangement now. You got all the wires coming up through the center hole here, and you got the other ones jumping from the back to the front. And everything's really nice and clean now. The bottom plate will just sit right on that to cover all that back up, and we'll be in really good shape. One of the things I didn't mention before was, why do I have the little standoffs underneath my plate? So these little guys here, which I've got to place back underneath there and then put that bottom plate on. But the reason why I put those under there is because I wanted the 3D printed plate to sit a little higher than everything else, so that there's that much more clearance going into this end and going through the other end. You could set it flush, and that wouldn't be a problem, but I elected to have it a little bit higher. But all in all, I'm pretty pleased with how this turned out.